Hello, and welcome to FACT's webinar called Facebook Groups, Your Secret Weapon to Drive Consumer Care, Loyalty, and Profits. Our presenter today is Corinna Bench, founder of My Digital Farmer and co-owner of Shared Legacy Farms in Ohio. I am Larissa McKenna, FACT's Humane Farming Program Director. I'll be moderating this session. Also with us today is Samantha Gasson, FACT's Humane Farming Program Associate. We are also happy to have you all at this webinar. Let me just give a few quick introductions before we dive in. Food Animal Concerns Trust or FACT. We are a national nonprofit organization that's headquartered in Illinois, and we work to ensure that all food producing animals are raised in a healthy and humane manner. To accomplish this, we support humane farmers, we promote policies that make foods from animals safe and healthy to eat, and we also help consumers make informed food choices. I direct FACT's Humane Farming Program, which works with livestock and poultry farmers from all across the country. And we offer a variety of services, including grants, scholarships, personalized materials, mentorship, and of course, webinars on many different topics. I want to mention that we are currently accepting applications for our Fund to Farmer grants and our Humane Farming Mentorship Program. So please visit our website at foodanimalconcerns.org /farmer to learn more about these opportunities, as well as all of our other farmer services. So this time, I am going to turn the floor over to my partner in crime, Samantha, who's going to introduce our guest presenter.
Thank you, Larissa. Well, I am very excited, and I know I've said this the other two times that Corinna did a webinar for us, but I'm very excited about. Sorry, I didn't put that. I didn't put my phone on mute. Sorry. Very excited to have Corinna with us. If you haven't checked out her other two webinars, you certainly should, because she is just a fountain of information. Her first webinar was, I think, back in September, maybe October, and it was about cultivating your customers. And there's just so much good stuff in there. And then the one she did last month for us was all about writing a good and effective newsletter, which is also pretty amazing. And I'm just going to go ahead and read a little bit about Corinna. So Corinna Bench is an entrepreneur, CSA farmer, speaker, podcaster, consultant, and educator who is committed to helping CSA farmers build CSAs that are profitable and viable for the long term. Since 2008, she and her husband are full-time farmers at Shared Legacy Farms in Elmore, Ohio, where they manage a 425-member CSA customer base that now boasts a retention rate of near 90%. So any of you who are CSA farmers should be very, very impressed by that. Corinna is the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is dedicated to helping farmers master the art of messaging, sales, and customer management for their CSA. She is a promoter of the National CSA movement and serves as a collaborator with the CSA Innovation Network. She also hosts My Digital Farmer and the CSA Marketing Discussion Facebook group. You can follow her, and I actually will post her handles in the chat in just a few minutes. But I have a farm in Durham, North Carolina, north of Durham, North Carolina, and so I have been following Corinna and following her podcast since the pandemic started, and I just cannot say enough about how knowledgeable she is and how willing she is to share her information. And we love her. We think she's fabulous. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the virtual mic over to Corinna. Take it away, Corinna.
Thank you, Samantha. What a kind opening remarks for me. I really appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar entitled Facebook Groups, Your Secret Weapon to Drive Customer Care, Loyalty, and Profits. Before we get started, I want to make sure I make the distinction that today we are talking about Facebook groups, not the Facebook business page. And there is a distinction. So I want to ask a question before we get started. You can give me your answer in the chat. Do you currently have a Facebook group for your business? Say yes or no. I just want to see what you guys write. You currently have a Facebook group. I'm not talking about the business page. I'm talking about a group. A group is a private, or it can be a public open group, but it's a separate thing within Facebook where you collect people around a common goal or mission or purpose. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, so it looks like it's a little bit even Steven. Yes, but stagnant. Okay. Also a separate business page. Okay, good. Not yet, says Robert. Okay. Good. So my next question is, are you currently a member of another Facebook group on Facebook? Yes or no? Let me know. So I want to kind of see how many of you have experience with other Facebook groups to kind of know what they're like, what's supposed to be going on in them. Yes, tons. Good. Hopefully you're a member of some of well-run groups that are actually adding value to your lives. Okay, awesome. Thank you. A lot of yeses. Good. So I just kind of want to make sure we're all on the same page, because there might be some people here who are like, there's a difference between a Facebook group and a business page. And the answer is there is. So today I am going to be talking about specifically about groups, and I want to make sure that I say that, and the power that they can have for cultivating your customer base, and a particular segment of your customer base if you really want to groom them into brand ambassadors. Now, I want to ask one other question. I kind of want to know, why are you here today? So you heard about this webinar. You probably saw the topic, the title of the webinar, and you were intrigued. You registered. And I would love if you could just write in a few words, what problem do you think a Facebook group can solve for you? Or like, what drew you to this topic? If you could just quickly write that. And part of this is I like to save this chat for later, because I can go back and see what kinds of stuff you say. And it helps me understand where people are coming from when they're like, I want to learn about a Facebook group. So what problem do you think the Facebook group can solve for you? Let me see if there's anybody that's daring enough to give me an answer. We'll see any comeback. Still thinking of, so why should I even have one? Okay. Reaching directly to people. Wow, this is going fast. Targeted interaction. I suppose I want to see a group for the business to improve interaction with my groups, increase numbers. Tips for engagement. Okay. If I had a larger CSA, it would be great for improving engagement. So you want to bring your people together, it sounds like. Building the cooperative in CSA2, educational information, marketing to different communities. Okay. And a couple of you guys maybe weren't even, maybe that's the wrong question that I'm even asking. You might have come here with a different purpose. Prompt order. So you want to figure out how to make money, how to monetize. Okay, good. So Facebook groups do a lot of things for you. You guys can stop now. That was really helpful. Actually, you can keep typing, because like I said, the chat is really helpful for me. I save the chat, and it's helpful for us when we do research and try to come up with other topics. So this webinar today is kind of geared for two different types of people. Number one, it's for a person who has never started a Facebook group, and you're thinking about starting a Facebook group, and you're kind of wondering, okay, what do I need to think about before I jump into this? The other person that's probably going to get a lot out of this conversation today is somebody who already has a Facebook group, and you just want some ideas for how to focus it, how to get it more engaged. Maybe your group is even kind of gone dormant or gone quiet, and you're not sure, how do I jumpstart it again and breathe some new life into it? I think you're going to walk away with some ideas from today's content. All right, so I am Corinna Bench. I had a wonderful introduction. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about me, but I do have a CSA called Shared Legacy Farms. There are 425 members in it, and there have been for probably the last 7 years. Now, once upon a time, our CSA really struggled with a revolving door problem. And every year I had to replace about 175 people through attrition. And that was difficult. That was not fun. That caused me a lot of stress every winter to have to handle that and deal with that. And so I wanted to solve this problem of customer retention. This was before we had a Facebook group, by the way. Okay. And so in 2017, I performed an experiment. And after I performed that experiment and implemented some of the stuff that came out of that, our CSA retention went from 64% to 78% at the end of that season. And the only thing that we changed that year with our customer base was getting serious about our Facebook group strategy. So I knew that something was happening in the Facebook group that was causing this excitement, this brand energy, and this loyalty to begin to form with my people. So what was I doing in the Facebook group? All right. And that is what the focus of today's topic is all about. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. Remember, I said that I did an experiment. So before I really went crazy with the Facebook group or gave it some attention, what I did is I did some interviews with 30 of my CSA, what I call master members. And these are my best clients. I knew who they were. They were people who were really bought a lot of stuff, were really into me, were really into my farm. And I was trying to uncover in these interviews, I mean, I got on the phone with them and I talked with them for like 30 minutes. I was trying to uncover what were they doing differently that made them love my product. It made it so easy for them to be into my farm and want to come back again and again. And I got all kinds of responses, but I saw a thread running through all of them. There were definitely patterns in these responses. And I began to take notes. I began to take notes of the kinds of things they were doing. What were the shortcuts they'd learned? What were the tricks? What were the hacks? What were the learning curves? What were the common mistakes that they made at the beginning? What were the walls they ran into? I took notes because it was almost identical whenever I talked to people. And out of those notes, I essentially developed, well, now I call it a curriculum. At the time, I was just kind of sharing that information. I began to share what I was learning in a Facebook group. So I created a separate group within Facebook. This is not the business page. Okay, the business page is the outward facing part of your business. So anyone from the public can just go look you up and see who you are. But your group is in our case, it was a private group that you could only be in if you were invited in. And I began to share this stuff with the people that were in there, and the crowd went wild. Like the engagement shot up. People were suddenly commenting. They were sharing their own ideas. They were saying, oh my gosh, this is so great. I didn't know that. And I had a large number of people suddenly interacting with each other, not just with me, but with each other. And I realized that I had tapped a nerve and I was giving something valuable to them. Now, there are so many benefits to having a Facebook group. I'm not going to go into super detail on all of these, but I do want to make you aware of them. Here are some of the things that began to happen because we had a Facebook group that had high engagement. Number one is that there was increased retention. So I had more people sticking around from year to year, which saves me time and money in marketing. I don't have to work so hard to find new customers because they're getting so much value add out of this community that they're a part of and the ideas that are in there that they want to stay. The whole package is not just the food, it's the experience too, and the community that they're a part of. And so they love it and people are sticking around. I also saw an increase in my profits because those people were beginning to ascend through my product suite. They were buying more and more stuff, which is what happens when you create a strong customer. They begin to graduate into all of your products. They want to buy everything from you. They become more loyal. They start to become a super buyer. And that began to happen because I was taking care of the community. I was taking care of the people inside of this group. We also saw a huge sense of belonging beginning to develop. And that's the real power, I think, of the Facebook group. If you run it well, they started to feel like these are my people. And this is a very powerful bonding element. If you can get someone to feel like they belong, you touch a deeper need that they crave. And now they will stay with you for life. And Facebook groups, if run well, really allow that to happen. A few more benefits that Facebook groups will give you is there'll be another avenue for customer service. So you know how you have to handle emails all the time from people when they have a question, or they call you on the phone, or they text you? Well, a lot of those problems now get solved in the Facebook group because for us, it's the fastest way for many of them to get their answer to their question because I have a community manager. I have someone that's really watching it all the time along with me. And so they can go there, ask a question, and if the community manager doesn't answer it, the community will answer it. In many cases, the people that are in the Facebook group know the answer and can help them out. So it helps you with customer service. Word of mouth increases because they're having such a great experience because of this value added of the Facebook group. They begin to talk about it more. There are more things to talk about because of the things that you're putting into that Facebook group that are adding value to them. And so it's just easier for the word of mouth piece to happen. And when they talk about the Facebook group, at least for my CSA, when they talk about the CSA, they often bring up how the Facebook group is such a great part of it. And then finally, just this overall general sense of energy and momentum, because your brand gets to just ride the wave of energy that's created by all of these happy clients inside. And I call this the halo effect. If you have good stuff happening in the group and people are engaging and it's making them love the CSA more, it just elevates everything about your brand and you can just ride that wave. So a lot of really positive things. It becomes a place where you can sell your products too. I should have mentioned that too. I can go in there and do a quick post and say, hey, I have 60 dozen extra eggs. Does anybody want them? And I often sell out in the comments where people will claim them. It's just ridiculous. So I am now a huge proponent of Facebook groups. I am not a huge fan of Facebook in general. I'm not going to lie, but the groups are so powerful and so beneficial to my business that, and they're a great place for me to go and be with my community, my own people, my customers who are my family, that I really do love being in there. And so I'm going to share today what I think are the key elements to making them work well. Now, I want to share with you a quote from one of my members, Brian Hammer. And he shared this with me a couple of years ago inside of the Facebook groups. He actually posted this. And this is what he said. I think the Facebook group has become one of the best perks of membership. I love seeing the pictures of everybody's food and love the community of like-minded foodies. Sure, the veggies are great, but this group is a major value add. So what I want to ask you guys, and I want you to share your answer in the comments, please, or in the chat, excuse me, is what is the specific thing that Brian values? Based on what he writes here, what is the thing that he values about the Facebook group? What extra value add is it giving him? So Kimberly writes community, connection. Share your answer. Community, sense of community. I think there's something else in there. So if anybody else has another idea, shout it out. Pictures of food, says Noah. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Here's the answer. So there's a couple of things that jump out at me. Seeing the pictures of everybody's food. So Noah mentioned that specifically. And what that is at a deeper level is inspiration. So when your community, people who are in your Facebook group come and actually engage and share ideas of things they're doing, it inspires everyone else in the group. And that actually has a lot of value for your customers because they live in a little silo and they want to come and get ideas from other people that are like them, right? So they love to come and just scroll the feed. And I have many people who tell me, wow, I'm going to make that recipe that Karen Ayers shared. That looks really good. The other big piece is that sense of belonging and community. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. These do not discount these. These are huge motivators for buying and wanting to be a part of your brand. And when you can tap into these whys behind your business, this is huge. So I want you to think about the Facebook groups that you are in. I asked that question earlier. How many of you were in a Facebook group somewhere on the web? And I want to ask you, what do you use them for? What content makes them valuable to you? Why are you going into those groups? So tell me in the chat, why do you value a Facebook group? The ones that you go and check out a lot. Marketing, knowledge. So you're looking for knowledge. Yeah, what are you going into that group for? To learn something, to get information. You can ask a question of a greater group, right? And crowdsource the answer. Good. To solve problems that I might have. So you're going out to see if other people have that problem. To share what I learned. Tammy, that's so huge. People love to share and it makes them feel like they're a part of the community then. Safe people. Yes, make sure I'm with safe people. Learn something, share ideas. Okay, so similar, right? Inspiration, you want to go and get information. You're trying to crowdsource. You're trying to solve a problem. Okay, now I want you to just flip that back. Your customers would probably say the same thing if you offered a really good Facebook group for them. Think about what they're looking for if you created a group. Is there something you could teach? Could you do something to inspire them? Could you do something to help them crowdsource, to help them solve a problem, to help them come and ask a question and get a quick answer? Could you create a group where that kind of stuff happens? And if so, maybe it would be really valuable for them too. All right, So let's flip the coin here a little bit and let's ask this question. What's one problem that you see in some Facebook groups? Tell me in the chat. I know we're all a part of some groups where we see issues that hop in: spam, bullying, negativity. Oh, yes. Rude members. Totally. Yeah, you guys hit on the big ones. I think, too, that there are some mean comments. Yeah, I think there's some groups, too, that are just like kind of dead, where they're really not active anymore. And so that doesn't really add value to me, and I kind of stopped going there after a while. Negative, off topic. Oh, yeah. Political views. Oh, my God. Preach it. Preach it. Yes. Being off topic. What about people who ask questions that, like, that question has been asked like 25 times in the past, and you're like, oh, just do a search for it, right? Like, do you ever ask that? I don't know. I'm being petty right now. But yeah, there's so many things about Facebook groups that kind of irk us. And so we kind of need to think about that as we're managing our own group or thinking about managing our own group. How do we make sure that when we set one up, that we create a successful Facebook group, one where those things aren't happening? Because otherwise people won't come back, right? They won't want to be there. So what are those best practices? Now I'm going to ask first, like, what is success? How do we define a successful Facebook group? So a healthy Facebook group is one where the members are actively engaged in a common purpose or goal. And this is huge, the engagement and content is largely driven by the members themselves. That second part sometimes catches people. In the early stages of a Facebook group, you will find that you're probably doing most of the content posting, but in a healthy group, it's largely driven by the people who are actually a part of it. That's how it's supposed to work. People who are in the group are the ones that are crowdsourcing and talking to each other and driving the content. It takes a while to get there, but that is the goal. And we want to cultivate a community and kind of train people to feel safe enough to do that. Now, before I kind of walk into the 4 goals that I want to chat about today, I want to make sure we talk about this issue of social density, because I'm often asked by people, well, how big does my group have to be in order for there to be enough like people actually talking? Because no one wants to go into a ghost town, right? We've all been there. So this is where I kind of talk about the empty bar syndrome. So if you've ever gone into a bar and there's a karaoke machine there, but there's nobody in the bar. Has that ever happened where there's like 3 people and someone's like, hey, let's go sing karaoke? Like, karaoke is not fun when there's only 3 people in the bar, right? Like, we need to have a certain number of people in the bar to make it feel like it's hopping and jumping, to make it feel like this is the place to be today. And so I want you to think about that with your Facebook group, that there does need to be a minimum viable audience number for your group to be successful. Because the truth of the matter is, how big does your group need to be? We'll talk about that here. Industry standards for Facebook groups are kind of running around these numbers. 40 to 50% of your members, by that I mean your customer base, let's say you have a CSA and you're going to invite them into your group. Only 40 to 50% of them will actually join the group. And then of those 40 to 50%, about 20% of those people will be active in the group. And that's a little bit sobering when you see those numbers. By active, I mean they're actually posting, or they're commenting, or they're checking it out and scrolling through. And so knowing those numbers, that's how you kind of decide, well, how many people, like, is my farm big enough to actually do a Facebook group? If you're super, super small and you don't have a huge customer base, a Facebook group is probably not a good idea for you yet. Or you should just have expectations that, maybe this is just going to be a place where I invite people to come in and may not engage, because if there's only going to be 20 people in here, they may not feel comfortable to do that yet. So just kind of knowing if you have a much larger customer base, or you have a big following that you can invite people into, you're going to get a larger number of participation the more people you have. So just know that there is that kind of magic number. I kind of tell people that if you have around 100 to 150 people that you invite in, you probably could have the start of a Facebook group, just to help you kind of know where to start. All right, so you want to ask yourself the question, is your community that you have to pull from large enough to even get started. And for some of you, you might get to this slide and be like, okay, I'm out. Like, this isn't me. And that's okay. Build your communities then and your relationships on Instagram, on your business page, in person as much as you can. But Facebook groups do require kind of that social density, that minimum amount of people. And I wanted to bring that up here early on. So where do Facebook groups fall in the marketing framework or in the funnel, the journey of the customer through your brand? I want to touch on this too. This is an image called the customer value journey. It's like the foundation of everything I teach about marketing. And this basically describes, each of these boxes describes a different space, a different stage, I should say, that your customers go through as they move from being completely unaware that you exist to a brand ambassador in the top right-hand box, a promoter of your brand. Okay. So people first have to become aware. So down here in the bottom left-hand corner, the guy looks very sad. He has a problem. You're going to solve it. They become aware that you exist, maybe on social media, maybe from word of mouth from someone, maybe walking by you at the farmer's market, right? Then you have to somehow get them to engage with you. You have to warm them up. You don't just get down on one knee and say, buy my $400 CSA. That would freak them out, right? We don't do that. We don't say, buy my side of beef for this much money, even though you just met me 2 minutes ago. Okay, so we have to warm people up. So then we just start to engage them. Maybe they start watching your videos. Maybe you talk to them in person at the market and you begin a relationship. Maybe they subscribe to your Facebook page or your Instagram page. Maybe they comment on something, right? They begin to engage with you. The goal then is to get them to get onto our email list. And that's what that third box, subscribe, is all about. We want them onto our email list. We own that. We don't rely on Facebook anymore to give our stuff, put our stuff in front of people's eyeballs. We have their email address. Then they eventually buy something once we've started talking to them on email and warming them up. That's the convert stage. And then the excite stage is where the Facebook groups, I think, really can be powerful. So I really use the Facebook groups for grooming my customer. Once they become a customer, I help them use the product, understand how to use the product. I deliver quick wins. I help them understand our values, learn the lingo, just kind of walking them into confidence as a user of my brand. And that's a really key part of the customer value journey. So many brands do not do anything for this box, and then they wonder why their pipeline dries up and why their customers don't advance. You have to create some element in your business that's exciting the customer, that's training them, guiding them, helping them find community, and so forth. Okay. And if you can do that, they move through the brand journey. They ascend up your value ladder. They buy more and more things from you. That's where you actually make your money in your business. And they turn into an advocate and a promoter. They start talking you up, and then they never leave you because they won't go back on their word when they say you're amazing. Okay, so this is the overall arching framework. There are systems in marketing for every single box that we build. And the excite phase is a place where primarily is where my Facebook group is working. So let's talk about some growth strategies for Facebook groups. What are the goals that we should be focusing on? And I have 4 that I want to talk through today. Number 1, I'm going to bring this one up because I always say safety first. So let's talk about safety first. Somebody mentioned this at the beginning, like we don't like to be a part of groups where there's negativity and bullying going on. And we want to make sure that we create a space here online where people feel like they can self-disclose, where they can ask a question and not look stupid, right? For some of you, you have customers who might be embarrassed to ask a question because they think they should already know the answer to it. And they need to make sure like, hey, it's okay to ask dumb questions here. Like we're all starting somewhere, right? And we don't want to feel like we might get attacked or made fun of. So this is a very common problem with Facebook groups. If they don't have a strategy on the front end to handle this, your relationships online will not form in a place of fear. They just won't. People will learn very quickly by watching what else happens on the screen. Like if you don't handle bullies, you don't handle people who are negative nannies, then people watch that in action and they realize I'm not going to go here. I'm not going to say anything. She doesn't have my back, right? So people do not engage until they feel like it's a safe space. So we need to create community guidelines, and then you need to police them. So if you've been in Facebook groups, you've probably seen this. It's usually a post that's pinned to the top of the group, and it's just a permanent post that lives there, and it has this creed, like we call them the community guidelines. Here's a screenshot. If you want, you can actually take a screenshot of that, and if you want to copy my words exactly, you can. But we just give the rules here, like be nice, be respectful. We reserve the right to remove any posts or comments that others might find offensive, right? So, I mean, I'm all about free speech, but like, I'm not about free speech if you're going to tear apart my community. Like, we have the right, as the owner of this group, to police that. And in fact, your group is expecting you to do that. And if you don't, they're going to notice and they're not going to want to engage. So I just want to make you aware of that. So that may mean that you're reprimanding, that you're kicking people out of the group. I've had to do that once. I've also had to reprimand someone privately and say, I need you to remove that post and I need you to apologize to that person. And they did. They actually were like really embarrassed. So that went well. But dealing with bullies is definitely something you want to handle. The second goal of a Facebook group is to teach or inspire your customers how to use your product better. You want to grow their skill. And this is that comment that we had earlier from Brian. Remember, he talked about how he loves to come here and just see what people are posting, to share recipes, to see other recipes from other people. This is what inspires him. He wants to be inspired. So if you can create a place where that becomes a focus, where you have content that's making that happen, then people will find value and a reason to come back here again. And I'll share some examples in a few seconds here. So when you're putting a group together, I think it's wise to have a content plan. And I know a bunch of you just groaned. You're like, oh God, no, I just want to put the group together and just like have it run itself. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. Maybe like once in a while, in a blue moon, it would work. If you just have tons of people that will be in there. But you need to set the terms. You need to set the stage for what this group is all about when you're first beginning. You need to, by the content that you're posting, you're kind of training your people. This is what we talk about here. These are the sacred words, so to speak, of our religion, of our product, right? We talk about these kinds of things. These are the kinds of posts that we do. And these are the things we don't typically talk about. So having a content plan, I always map one out. I actually have a community manager for my Facebook group now. And we spend like 2 or 3 hours probably in April is when we meet. And we just kind of talk about, hey, what are the things that we want to highlight? We want to make sure people know. We'll just throw them up on this week. That'll be the focus of this week. We're going to talk about these 2 things and, leave it at that, like 2-3 posts a week. And that's good enough coming from our end. But having some kind of a plan, like what is it that we want to talk about and encourage people to talk about in here is always a good thing. So again, people will join the group. They will keep coming back to the group if they feel like there's something valuable in the group. So how are you going to guide the discussion? That's your role as the creator of the group and the founder. And if you are the manager of the group, you need to keep your finger on the pulse of here's what we talk about and kind of create those prompts to get things going. So what do your members actually value? And this is what you need to figure out. And unfortunately, there isn't a silver bullet. Like I can't sit here and give you the top 10 list. I do vegetables. I know many of you do meat. So I have a different audience than you, and I don't know your audience as well. I don't know the questions that they have. But what are the things that are important to your people? What are the questions that your customers often ask you? So just share some of those right now in the chat. I'm assuming that most of you are meat producers. So what would be some of the things that a customer in a Facebook group that you might run would be curious to know about or learn about or find value in? Throw out some ideas. Let's just learn from each other. How they're raised. How do I cook XYZ? I love it. Is your beef grass fed? Yeah, go show them. Do a little video. Take a few screenshots or whatever. Anything else come to mind? The story of your food, right? The transparency piece that people value so much. So many things you could do there. Recipes. Yes, you guys, I am totally stumped by all those weird cuts of beef. Yesterday, I took some meat out of my freezer because we just bought a side of beef. I thought it was chicken. I'm so embarrassed. And as I took it off the counter, realized, it had thawed. I'm like, this is red meat. What is this? And they were soup bones. All right. And I'm like, oh, shoot. What am I going to do with these right now? I was not prepared to make soup. And it was like 5 o'clock. I'm not going to start a soup at 5 o'clock. These weird cuts of meat. What do I do with these? That's another great example. Okay. So helping your customers grow, they're coming into your funnel. Some of them are like super savvy with your products. Some of them are not. So assuming that they're at the beginning, like you have content for people at the beginning of the journey, you have content for people who are advanced. It's a kind of a mishmash and you see what resonates. Okay. That's the point here, is that you test. So many of you have already said this, but curating recipes, this is a huge element of many farm Facebook groups that are successful. Recipes that are shared by you, but also by your group members, because they're coming to be inspired. They want to know, what do I do with this stuff that you gave me? All I can think of is the same 4 recipes that I got from my mom, right? And I don't know what else to do. I want to be more of a foodie or whatever. So curating recipes, encouraging your members and rewarding your members when they come up with cool recipes. So you're not the only one doing it. That's huge. Training. Emphasizing here, short video tutorials that solve a problem or answer a common question that they might have. So if you know the questions that your customers have at the beginning of their journey when they start with you, you can easily create 5 to 10 short little hop-in quick tip nuggets. Okay. Doesn't even have to be like you at a stove. It could just be like you holding up a cut of meat or whatever, a tool in your kitchen that you use all the time, and just do like a 2-minute thing about it. So again, going back to what I said earlier, the reason why this was so successful for us, I think, is because I took the time to interview my best customers. Remember, I got on the phone with 30 of them and I asked them, hey, what was helpful for you? Like, what did you wish that you knew that you didn't know? What did you have to learn the hard way? What were the mistakes you made? What are the most common kitchen tools you use for using my product? I asked all these questions and I got the content from them. So that's a great place to go to get this information. Sharing a quick tip or tool, a hack, a shortcut, a quick win. And, if video scares you, then just do a quick image post. This is like a shot of roasting tomatoes, because this is how most people deal with tomato overload, is they roast a bunch of tomatoes and they either freeze them like this in Ziplocs, or they turn them into a sauce and then freeze the sauce. So that's what I was sharing in this particular post. And I think there was a recipe from Karen Ayers about that. But sharing some kind of a quick tip, you'll get these from your own members and you'll begin to collect them. So I keep track of there's this one beet chocolate muffin recipe that shows up every year because it's brought up again and again. And we just recycle it because it's a popular fan favorite. Host fun group events. People don't often think of this, but Facebook group is a great place to have an event. And I'm not talking about making, that post style of create an event. I'm talking about, hey, we're going to have a challenge for the next 7 days. We're going to do the big ass kohlrabi photo contest. You guys all got these massive kohlrabis and I want you to take a picture of them. And I had people like dressing up their kohlrabis. It was crazy, putting Google eyes on them, putting them in like Return of the Jedi scenes with lightsabers. It was insane. So coming up with just fun, ridiculous contests like this. We had a wacky carrot contest. Oh my God, you should have seen the pictures that came in. There's one of them on the left. Dioramas, right, that they're putting together. And I chose a winner and there was a fun prize. Like I probably spent $30 on a prize, but it created so much engagement and fun, right? People walk away at the end of the year when I'm like, hey, do you want to sign up again? And they're like, yeah, I do, because this is fun. This isn't just vegetables. And then the Willy Wonka golden ticket, you guys can totally steal that. I found that on Etsy for like $4, the template for it. I printed it on some golden paper and I hid, if you have a CSA, I hid 3 golden tickets one week in the boxes and people got a sweet prize. That created a ton of energy. I only did that once, but I'll do it again. So just giving you ideas. Okay, another thing to think about too is validation. So, your CSA, excuse me, I keep saying CSA, your Facebook group is a place where you can validate your members. And you're doing this, but if your community is doing it too, it's even more powerful. So I have, you'll have a member go post something, share a recipe, or give a tip, and then a whole bunch of other people from the CSA who are in that group suddenly comment and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so amazing! You're so inspiring! I love your posts. You always make such interesting things." And if you are a CSA member in the Facebook group and you got those kinds of comments on a regular basis every time you post, wouldn't you come back? Yes, right? You feel valuable to this community. You feel like you're adding to the conversation, and you feel like it's important that you're there. That feels good. So we did this thing called CSA Giveaway Week. We had a challenge question every day, and we just threw up a different question, and people had to answer them. And I picked somebody random from the comments and gave them a prize, a giveaway. And this was the question on Monday. Name someone from our CSA Facebook group who has inspired you in your cooking and how. Like 97 comments, people. And think about all the people who got their name mentioned. How awesome they now feel. Oh yeah, they love this group now, and they love our CSA, and they're going to stay forever. So this is what I'm talking about. When you create a place where you can validate people, make them feel like they belong, you can create posts like this that make that happen, and then they don't want to leave. So the trick is that you keep people coming back, right? The content can't go stale. And you constantly have to be either creating, some kind of a question post, or have a plan in place, and that will spur other people to add content to the group. And then eventually we want our community members in the Facebook group to be the primary drivers of the content, which is now where I am at with my Facebook group, but it wasn't that way the first year. Now I want to share a resource at this point that I think is going to help you a ton. I have this resource. It's called the 19 social media post templates. You guys, you have to get your hands on this. It is awesome. And it's free if you go to mydigitalfarmer.com/social. It's like blurry. You can't see it. I'm sorry. It only does my face clear. Sorry. But this is going to give you 19 different types of posts. So if you're one of those farmers, it's like, I don't know what to put. Like, I have the image post. I have a question post. I have a thing that I could sell post. What else can I do? So that's what this is going to tell you. There's a testimonial post. There's a frequently asked question post style. There's a behind the scenes story post, the wise farmer post. Like, it goes through all different examples and shows you what they can actually look like. So this is really helpful. And this is going to give you ideas for what content to put into your group. So if you're thinking, I don't know what I'd even put in my content plan, that is going to be really, really helpful for you. It's going to blow open so many doors. You're going to realize, oh, I have so many possibilities for what I could put down here. And then you just rotate through them. You change it up. All right. When do you build this content plan? Well, I like to say, if you can try to have 6 to 8 weeks of ideas mapped out in advance before you kind of relaunch your season. So our group kind of goes a little bit dormant. I don't want to say totally dormant. I'm in there, but it's definitely not as active in the off season right now. I'll do a few challenges in the winter to kind of jazz things up, but it really kind of heats up again back in end of April, early May. And so I will start putting together that content plan for the summer. And I'll have about 6 to 8 weeks worth of topics and themes, essentially, that we want to focus on for well in advance. And I'd work on that during the off season. I am not doing that in the middle of craziness. Now, one of the things I want to encourage you to think about, if you're like, oh my God, who has time for this, is to hire a community manager. And this can be someone that you barter with, or it can be someone that you actually pay. In our case, we actually pay her. Her name is Katie. She's been with us now for 4 or 5 years as our CM. She is in charge of the Facebook group. I still go in there every day and just kind of scan around, but I only look at it for like 10 minutes. She's in charge of running the content. And this year, she's going to be given even more responsibility of building the content plan and just taking ownership of the entire strategy in there. So I wouldn't have given her that job 3 years ago. She wasn't ready, but I feel like she is now. She's done it with me several years, and I think she can come up with the contests and the challenges herself. Now, I recommend that if you do this person comes from your group of fans. It should be a customer. It should be someone that knows your product, that knows you, that knows your voice, that knows your values. And this person essentially becomes the manager of the group. They are in charge of checking in a couple of times a day. They're answering questions. If there's an issue that they can't answer, they're bringing it to your attention. But it takes it off of your plate. And then you don't feel like you're sucked into social media all the time, which is what I love, because it's really easy to get pulled into a group. And I make someone else responsible for taking care of the group entirely. Well, that sounds exhausting, Corinna. How long do I keep that up? Are you asking that right now? Totally get it. So here's the deal. You're probably, this is for people who've never started a Facebook group. You'll probably be the primary driver of content the first season, maybe even into the second. But as you begin to model to your community what kinds of stuff we talk about here, and as people begin to feel safe, and as people begin to see other people begin to post, you will see more and more people start to engage, and it will largely become driven by your community itself. This is assuming that you have that social density too, right? That a minimum number of people you need to have in the group. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this slide is be patient, execute consistently, and do it well for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then after that, it really does. You get to that point where you can kind of back off. All right, we have 2 more goals to get through. Number 3 is the Facebook group should connect the customer to you, the farmer. I talk a lot about how I don't know if this is the case for every kind of business, but I think with a farm, the customer really wants to connect with you. They want to get to know you. It's one of the reasons that they're buying your product, because of that transparency piece. They want to support their local farmer. And so we need to show up and be willing to connect with them and meet them on social media. So that means that we have to share certain kinds of content that allow customers to actually connect with us. So sharing images of yourself. It's going to feel weird doing that, I know, but if you don't ever show your face, that connection with you doesn't happen as quickly. Share the stories of the farm through your eyes. So this is like behind the scenes kinds of stuff, right? And then engagement. Well, sorry, there's a typo there. Engagement with people. So I noticed this a lot with our fans, that there's something about when you appear on camera a lot, they begin to feel like you're a little bit of a celebrity. And when they actually see you, or when you take the time to talk to them at the farmer's market or pickup site, there's like a little bit of like, wow, she like gave me her personal attention. So we want to make sure that we're actually engaging with them. Like if you comment back to something, if you like their post, even better if you comment on a post that they make, that like feels really special to them because you're the founder, you're the farmer. And so your comments have more weight. So I just want to make sure that I say that it's not just about what you're posting, but when you actually go and comment and interact with people in your group, that goes a long way and means a lot. So don't discount that. You can also use your group to get feedback from people. So a lot of times I'll ask questions about a product, or if I'm thinking about starting a product, I'll kind of throw out a question, and it gives people a chance to let me know what they think, right? Lines of communication. Open up. So remember that customers, this is that transparency piece, but I think it's a little deeper too. There's some nostalgia going on here for like customers are living vicariously through you. There is something nostalgic and legendary about the family farm. And so when you show them this is what they want to see. This is how they want to connect with you. I want to know my farmer like in the good old days, right? So make sure you give them chances to do that. So look at these pictures, like 2 of them, half of them are pictures that have nothing to do with farming. We're cutting our Christmas tree. My son's showing his airplane. The other 2 are actually like processes. One of it, like Josiah's playing Jedi with a Brussels sprout stalk, which was kind of cute. But these are endearing moments that make us look like real people and connect us. And so we want that to happen, right? That's the goal of a Facebook group too. When they connect with you, the founder, the farmer, then in that moment, there's a bond. that begins to form, and that bond is unbreakable in many cases. Now, don't forget, I kind of mentioned this already, relationships do not happen unless you talk to each other. So this is a very common mistake that Facebook groups make, where the farmer never interacts at all, sets it up and doesn't go and comment, doesn't talk back. That's like a one-sided, that's not really a relationship. That's I don't know what that is. It's not a relationship. So you need to talk back. And this is why those comments are king, why we need to make sure that we are spending a little bit of time commenting on a few of the posts so people see that we're in there. You don't have to set your timer, just be in there 5-10 minutes. It's okay. But people are looking for that. And this is good too. If you can't ever think of anything to post, because that happens to me sometimes where I'm like, I don't know, the well is run dry, then use the time that you would have spent putting that post up to engage and leave a comment instead with some of your people. And that is time well spent. So be active. I already said this. Many Facebook groups falter because the farmer isn't in there at all. So you've got to be willing to invest in those relationships. And let's just be frank. If you're not going to commit to doing that, hey, that is okay. Then just don't start a group. Then the group is not for you. Or you've got to get a really good community manager in there. But I do think you have to be in there a little bit. And if you're like, Corinna, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on social. Let's just say that's okay. Then don't do it. Don't do it. And feel no shame about that. No regret. All right. That should say goal number 4. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure we're on goal number 4. We want to build a sense of community and belonging with other like-minded people, right? This is the last thing we're going to chat about. And this is, I think, the most important part of Facebook groups. Let's go back to that quote from Brian, where he says, I think the Facebook group has become one of the best perks of membership. Remember this, that one element there, the community of like-minded foodies. He's talking about belonging and finding his peeps, finding his tribe, for lack of a better word. Belonging is what bonds people. In fact, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is something you study in marketing, it's considered one of the top most needs. There's the base needs, I have to have my basic needs met. I need food and water and so forth. But belonging is up near the transcendent level. If you can get there, you have locked them in. And so you want your Facebook group members to find some common ground so that they feel like they have a group identity, not just, I like farm fresh food, but no, I'm a part of a bigger group of people that loves this. And in Facebook group, actually social media in general, but in Facebook groups, the holy grail, the measurement that the algorithm is looking for is engagement. And so that's why comments are so powerful, more so than likes. You want your people to comment or create content themselves in the group. When you participate as a group member, when you participate in a Facebook group, or when you contribute content or give value in some way from yourself, you are helping grow the tribe, and you feel important and you feel invested when you're actually helping build it, right? This is why Facebook groups help with customer retention, because it's the belonging that's actually driving the loyalty more so than the product itself. So we want to build the loyalty and the belonging. So how do we do this? Well, we get them to share recipes. We talked about that already. We get them to give advice. Try to get your own members in the group to answer questions, to help other people out. It shouldn't always be you sharing the ideas. You want to position them as the expert. The more you can do that, the better. So here's some examples here on the left. Somebody was sharing what she's going to be doing with all of the stuff from our CSA box. And there were a bunch of people that commented on this, right? I'm not the only person that needs to talk about stuff. There's a bunch of other people that have ideas. And when they're sharing, then they look good. They look like a faculty member, right? They feel like, oh, it matters that I'm here. We want them to try and teach something. Try to get them to teach something without even asking them to, because your community knows more than you do. Esther Hertzfeld, you've got some superstar customers who know how to use your product. So let them showcase that. And then they become an aspiration. They become the thing that everybody wants to be. This woman right here, Esther, everybody wants to be Esther in my group. Okay. They won't say it, but I know it. They're all aspiring to be Esther. She's the cocktail queen. She makes amazing cocktails and posts it every week. But she also just has these cool ideas. And I know we're all reading them and going, what? You made homemade vegetable bouillon today? I don't teach that. That's brilliant. So how can I be more like Esther? And suddenly Esther knows it's important that I'm here because I'm causing people to grow. Question posts are really huge. And in that guide that I talked about, those 19 social media templates, this is one of those things that's in there. This is a great way to get people to put a comment in. So this particular question just got people to tell me what's their favorite Canadian ice cream. And that helped me later on when I was launching our CSA renewal promotion. This helped me later on with something I needed to do. I just got some advice from my own customers. Experience common rituals together. So this is another way that you create a sense of community. Create some rituals that you all do in the group. So an example of this is we have a weekly unboxing video. It happens every Tuesday at a certain time. And we all know it happens. It's especially popular the first 4 or 5 weeks. A lot of people watch it, not so much towards the end. But everybody knows that it happens. And everybody knows the format. And everybody knows when it's going to happen. And we all just understand that this is what we do together, right? Even developing a common language. So we have buzzwords within our CSA, like vegetable exit strategies, right? We have things called danger zone veggies. I don't know if we should call it that, but these are the veggies that perish quickly, that if you don't take the tops off the carrots, for instance, they get all limp, right? So we talk about how carrots are a danger zone veggie. You got to get them out of the danger zone and deal with them and store them properly. We have lingo like that nobody from the outside would understand. And so we onboard people into that language. That language actually creates this sense of community, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Like, what are those words that you use? You're going to have little things that you teach and that only you teach or talk about. That becomes a way to create community. Identify what those are, and then make sure you systematize the teaching of them. I already talked about challenges, but here's an example. This was one of the winners of the Big Ass Kohlrabi contest. Look at this. Lilliputians that are picking up this kohlrabi. These people are posting things like this. It was crazy. And it was hilarious. It was so fun. Participate in challenges together. When we do fun things together, we grow and bond together and feel a sense of belonging. Okay, so this is another way that we get at that. So that was my mostly last slide. I want to ask actually, let me go back to this one. I want to get your opinion. What other content has done well in Facebook groups that if you're running one, what content has done really well? If there's something that I didn't mention, let's share it in the chat so that anyone who's here today can see other ideas. So I talked about challenges and recipes and question posts. Anything else? So I may have forgotten something. Kids pictures. Oh yeah, anything with your family or your dog. Polls. Yeah. Live events. Okay, good. Yep. Live video. Good. Thanks for suggesting those. Yeah, so this is stuff where you just test things out. And when you see people engaging, you're like, gonna do that again, right? So here's my question. Will you be starting a Facebook group after today's presentation? If you would like to say yes or no in the chat. If you are already doing one and you're committed to doing it better, you can say yes. This is your final interaction here before we move to questions. I have one, but I will put more effort into it. Yes, 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 yes. First year CSA, but definitely in our 5-year plan. Good, awesome. So learn as much as you can right now so that when it's time, you're ready to go. Changing my page to a group as well. Eventually, yes. Good, awesome. Well, let's move on. This is my last slide. Just kind of want to make sure you know how you can connect with me. You can join my email list, listen to my podcast, the My Digital Farmer podcast, where I teach all kinds of marketing strategies. That's probably like where you're going to get a lot of value. So I encourage you to check that out. And then my Instagram handle. Don't forget those 19 social media post templates. That's super, super valuable. So I think, Larissa, you're going to put the link in the comments, mydigitalfarmer.com/social. Super good. Let me take your questions now. When we can go about 15 minutes, Larissa.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I did share that link in the comments. It's kind of might be buried. We've had a lot of engagement, but there's a question. First of all, let me just clarify that this is being recorded. I'm going to be sharing a link to the recording and these slides tomorrow. So look out for an email
Yeah.
from me, and it also will be posted on our website. And then you can also always find the recordings if you go directly to Facts YouTube channel. They're there. So just so folks know, you'll have access to it. There's a question that came in. It says, how do you balance keeping your kids private yet sharing about your life, since ours is a public account currently? So that kind of, walking that
Mhm.
fine line of wanting to share some things, but perhaps keeping some of it private.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. I think the question about kids is definitely an individual one, a personal one that everyone has to make, and you can definitely still get the benefits of connecting with people if you don't show pictures of your kids. You can talk about something your kid did without showing a picture of them. But if you don't want to say anything about them at all, that's okay. A picture of you, though, if you're comfortable doing that, I think has a ton of value. So still try to find ways to show your face, or like your dogs or whatever. That goes a long way.
Yeah, so folks have animals on this group, so
I
that
know you have
come in
animals.
handy. Lots of different types. There's a note that someone said, besides Facebook groups, I also link to Instagram and Twitter. Also link Instagram and Twitter to them. So there's kind of connecting all those as well.
Mhm.
Scrolling down, folks. If there are questions, I will. Let's see.
Yeah, I have some that came in earlier too that I can
Yeah.
pull from if you want me to pull some of those out. Let's see. Yeah, there was one in here that says, would be great to know how to screen people before they join your group to weed out any troublemakers. And so this is where I guess there's kind of a couple of things here that I would say. You have a choice when you set up a group to make it. I don't know what the terminology is now. They may have changed it, but it used to be like an open group or a closed group, private group, public group. I'm not sure what the words are now, but if you're going to make your group public, that means that anybody can find it and join it without you approving them or not. But if you want it to be closed, then you have the power to decide whether they can come in or not. And I think that gives you some power because number one, you would only invite people, you would only give people that link to the Facebook group if they were a customer, for instance, and you already, just by that nature of that relationship, you trust them, they have a little bit more like credence, right? As opposed to someone just out in the public that's joining. So if you have a closed group, you can also use the questions feature where you ask 3 questions that people have to answer before they're approved by you. And you can come up with some things like, hey, you must write yes in the comment here. And on the second question could be like, have you read the community guidelines? Do you approve? Yes or no? And they have to write yes in there. I mean, you could do stuff like that makes sure that they've read your rules of engagement. So that was how I was going to answer that question. What apps or software do you use to create your content and manage your customers? So I use canva.com as a graphic design tool to do a lot of my image posts. So I highly recommend that. If you don't know about Canva, what are you waiting for? It's so great. It's free and it teaches you. It's just an amazing graphic design program that'll make you look like a professional graphic designer. But most of the stuff that I'm doing, I'm using my iPhone. And if I make a video, um, it goes into the Facebook group. I'll just stream right into the Facebook group. If it's a really good video, I'll download it and then put it onto YouTube. But those are my primary software, content producing softwares for a Facebook group. Nothing super fancy.
Excellent. Sam, you had a question, I know.
Yeah. Corinna, this was my question. So, when you're talking about the excite phase, would you put a newsletter in there? So, or would that in your opinion, be sort of in the same level as a Facebook group?
The newsletter, the weekly email is another example of the excite phase. Yes. Yeah. So anything that you're sending after someone has purchased, anything that you're sending that continues to cultivate a relationship and a connection and build excitement about who you are. So you can build excitement about your product because you teach them how to use the product and you give a tip or whatever. But you can also build excitement about a product like anything in your farm suite. If you share a fun story, like we talked about in the last webinar, if you share a story uh, that happened to you last week and it kind of endears the reader to you because they find some common ground with you, like that's also creating a connection and is building that excite phase, making it more likely that they'll want to buy from you again. So it doesn't always have to be inspiring them with teaching content. It can be inspiring them with just values and your personality and building that trust factor.
So we had a question that came in. They said, "This is great advice for a Facebook group, but how much of this, and I'm assuming content-wise, they mean, do you share on your regular old Facebook business page? So is there some overlap between what you do in the group and what you kind of have out there?"
Yeah,
Uh,
that's such a good question. I spend a whole lesson talking about that in my Facebook course. There's some commonality. So when you're thinking about your Facebook business page, remember that the audience for that, the people that are coming to that page, is much broader. It could be people that are still in that unaware phase or just became aware that you existed and they're just dabbling in your content. It could be people that don't even buy your product, but they're just interested in farming information. They could be living in another state, just following you. It could be another farmer following you, right? There's just so many different kinds of people that are in different stages of the customer journey. The people that are in your Facebook group, when you set it up, like you kind of set a goal and like this is what this group's all about. This is what we do here. And those people tend to be people that have purchased, that are more solidly aligned with you, and they're just in a different place. So I talk different to them. Just like, when I write emails, like I'm talking differently to the people that have bought from me for years and years and years than to people that get the general email that goes to everyone else on my list. Like there's just a different voice. And so when you're creating content, the stuff that's going on the business page is more focused on attracting my ideal customer. So the content that I create on my Facebook business page is designed to help people who aren't my customer yet get to know me and decide if they like me and if they want to be my customer. And the ultimate goal of your Facebook business page, in my opinion, is to get someone on your email list. So to put the right content out there so that the right customer, your ideal client, based on the content that you put out there, is like, I like these people. I want to be with them. And then you give them opportunities to get on your email list. And then that's where you really groom them later. So, yeah, I'm doing like behind the scenes stuff there too. I'm showing what's the stuff going on the farm. Here we are harvesting rutabaga. Like that's helping someone become more aware that I exist. They're engaging. They're deciding, do I like them? Would I buy their products? I'm kind of mentioning the stuff that I sell so that they know what I'm known for. And then I'm occasionally giving them these lead magnets like, hey, if you want to know if you'd be a good fit for a CSA, here are 6 questions you should ask. You can download it, right? I might do an unboxing video on my business page too occasionally, just to kind of show people what's in a CSA box. But it's talking to a wider audience. Whereas in the Facebook group, it's like insider stuff, right? That only people who know the language and the rituals, like this is the stuff we talk about for people who are really taking it to the next level. And it just has a different feel to it. Some of the content overlaps, but I always make sure that there's stuff that only my Facebook group people see in the Facebook group.
Awesome. That makes
So
sense.
we had another question from Tammy. She says she's had a group for over 3 years and she has used the tips you've shared, but she gets little interaction and sales. Any suggestions?
She's had a Facebook group. Is that what you said?
Yes, she said she's had a Facebook group for over 3 years and that she has used the tips that you've shared, but she gets little interaction and sales. Do you have any
Hmm.
suggestions?
So how many people are in the group? Have you met the social density requirement? I guess that would be a question that I would ask. Because that may be an issue. There aren't enough people in the group. Remember that half of those people will actually go in there, and only 20% of that half will actually interact. So
So
you do need to have a larger number. What did she say?
she said she has 200 people in her group.
Okay, that's actually a good size. I would say that's a good size. So what I would try doing is reaching out to some of your best customers, and like I did early on, and I would contact them and I would talk to them about what has been helpful about the product that we sold or the CSA or whatever, and try to get some feedback from them. What are some of the roadblocks you ran into, and just see what information she gleans from them, and try to share some of that information back, or try to ask them, what would you like to see in the Facebook group, see more of, and just get the feedback right from your customer, because that does kind of surprise me. Clearly there's something that's not quite connecting there, and so if she can figure out what they're missing, that might go a long way. Another option is to get a community manager, and the right kind of personality that's running the group could also make a huge difference. I know that Katie, who's our CM, she's just this, she's my perfect customer. Like, everyone looks at her and thinks, I want to be like her someday. She's like that Esther Hertzfeld person. And so that really helps if you have someone kind of leading the charge that everyone is sort of aspiring to be. So it could be just a leadership thing too.
There's been a couple other questions. Folks are wondering how you find a content manager, and if it's someone that you are, that would come out of your community, or is it someone that you hire, from external?
Yeah, I would not hire someone externally. It should be someone that has purchased your products, and that knows your values, that knows your voice. Um, and Katie, she was a dietitian, and she had been in my group for a few years, and I had noticed that she was pretty active. So I reached out to her for that reason, and we sort of tried it out. I actually was like, hey, could you just, without being paid, I just want to see how you do. Could you just sort of act like a community manager for the next few months, try to be really engaged and just drive content, drive engagement with your questions or your comments. So we sort of tried her out that way. And that helped a ton. But I also had a moment where I actually introduced her as the official community manager, where we were both on camera together and we were doing a training together, so that she sort of saw the community saw me passing the baton on to someone else. I think that was a powerful moment for the community to see. But I do think it has to be someone from your own group that understands your lingo. Otherwise, yeah, people are going to tell that they don't belong. Like, I don't know who this person is. She hasn't been in here like ever. Who is she to tell me what I'm supposed to do?
I think there's just one final question.
There's actually one other one that came in the Q&A, but why don't you take the one that's in the chat, Sam?
Okay. Should your group be named or affiliated with just your farm? I have a group that I started years ago for organic farmers in general, and it ran well by itself. Couldn't I just post from my page to that group?
Mhm.
Say that one more time. Are you asking how to name your group? I'm confused. I
I
felt like
think
there were two questions in
I,
there.
I think what Margarita's asking is she's got another group that she started a while ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess because that group's already working well for her, can she just is there any reason why she couldn't just use that group as her farm Facebook group? I think that's what Margarita, if you want to clarify.
Oh,
But that's
like
what I
merge them? Yeah,
yeah.
invite people over
Right.
into that space. Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly an option. If that group already has the bandwidth and the engagement, that make it look like there's social density in the room. That's a great way to go, for sure. Yeah, I love that idea. You would just have to make sure that you really communicate that well, right? Like, you don't just one day just do it. I would kind of warn people, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and then warn them kind of again, and then be like, okay, now we're doing it. Here's how you get over to that group. Um, yeah, it's a good idea.
All right. And then the last question, thanks for that, Corinna, is what's the best way to build a Facebook group if you're an introvert?
Hmm.
Actually, I think it's a great thing to
So,
ponder.
would you guys be surprised if I told you I'm an introvert? I'm super introvert. Um, yeah, I get really nervous around crowds. So I wonder if number one, the first thing that comes to mind is getting a community manager. So having someone else that's doing it with you kind of helps take some of the pressure off. Especially if if you know that they're also getting on a video and doing something, it's like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Oftentimes, what I find though is that when people ask this question, what they're really asking is, do I have to get on video? Do I have to show my face on video? And so the answer to that is no. If you're uncomfortable in the initial stages and getting in front of a camera and performing or whatever, then just don't do it that way. Just take a photo, take a screenshot of yourself, and then post that, and then put what you want to tell them in the post itself. But that might be a way to kind of ease your way into it. Another option is to do a. I actually don't even laugh, but I have a Facebook group. I call it my dummy Facebook group, and I go in there sometimes and practice. No one is a member except my brother. And so if I'm ever not sure how something's going to go, I'll go in there and practice, and then I'll do it again for the real group. So that's another way to get comfortable being on camera, is to practice doing it in a dummy Facebook group that you set up with only, you have to have at least one other member besides yourself. My brother never goes in there and looks. So I know no one's watching, but it's just another place to practice doing that, being on camera by yourself.
Those are some really great tips. Yeah, I feel like there's this expectation now with Zoom and all these other technologies that that's what we're supposed to do, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's absolutely essential all the time. So
Yeah, I mean, I really think that if you have someone in your group that you designate as the primary content manager, and you just hop in with an occasional comment and screenshot, and here I am, that I'm watching you guys, right? That's enough. We don't all have to be extroverts. I know that as an introvert, I felt like I spent my whole first 30 years of my life feeling like I had to look like an extrovert, or like that. Those were the skills that were rewarded by our culture, and so I felt like I needed to learn those skills, even though they weren't my strengths. And I know them now. I can do them. I can perform on command, but they're still not my default setting. And so all of us introverts, I probably feel that way, right? It's not fair. This is an extrovert world. But there's a lot of value. What you do bring to the table as an introvert is your ability to connect one on one with people. And so if that's where your strength is, then really use that. Like, be the commenter, be the one that's Facebook messaging them, right? And saying, hey, I saw that comment. That was really cool. Da, 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 da. And try to build that one on one stuff. You can do some powerful stuff that way.
probably a topic for a whole nother webinar.
Yes, that would be. Can you be successful as an introvert?
Exactly. Oh, wow. Well, thanks to everyone. I think we got through most of the questions that popped up. If we didn't, there'll be time for follow up later. But I do just want to have a couple housekeeping items to share. There will be that short survey that pops up on your screen. If you are able to take that and give us your feedback, we'd love it. We really use this. We use it to for future planning and for just all kinds of evaluative efforts that we do. And then, like I mentioned, we will be sending out a link to the recording and to these slides for your downloading and viewing pleasure. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow morning. So this is our last webinar of 2021. Somehow the year is coming to a close, but we will be back in January. We have a good lineup started, so you can see some of those sessions that are coming up. in January and early February, and we'll be adding to that list throughout the rest of the winter. We are accepting applications right now for both our mentorship program, our farmer grant program, and for our scholarships. So please take a look at those opportunities, and hopefully you'll be able to connect with us around those. I think that's about all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Corinna, for being with us today and for the past couple times you've been with us earlier this fall. Your presentations have really been absolutely top notch, and I really have enjoyed all the little nuggets of wisdom that you've shared with us. And so I just like to thank you, and thank you, Samantha, for being with us as well. It's always nice to have a partner in crime to run these things. Everyone out in the audience, I I am seeing all the thank you thank yous come in. So
Aw.
it's I love the that we have this chance to interact and to kind of connect, virtually, of course. But it is wonderful to see your faces, or I should say, your names pop up week to week. So I hopefully you'll be with us in the future as well. I think
And I
that's
just and let me just say one thing, Larissa. You've got to listen to Corinna's My Digital Farmer podcast. I have to put a plug in there for it. It's
Oh, thanks.
it's amazing. She does a wonderful job. You really should give it a go. I've been listening for over a year now, and I am still learning something new every single week. So just put a
Mm,
plug in there for
thanks,
that.
Sam. Thanks. I love
lots of
doing it.
plugs. And there's no video involved in a podcast, right, Karina?
That's right. That's right.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening and week, and we will see you soon. Bye bye.